First and foremost, I want to thank everybody who's left a comment on Stadium Astro. We're on Instagram, we're on X, known as Twitter before. We're on every platform. And we've asked for some questions for Steve Bruce, who's here for the weekend. I'm just going to pick out a few, however much time we have left, which isn't too long. But we got one from S. Patrick. The question is, what was his feeling like, your feeling like, scoring these 2 late goals against Sheffield Wednesday to win United their first top-flight title in '93? After a 26-year wait. And by the way, who else was on that pitch that specific match?
A certain Mr. Palmer sitting next to me. Yeah, I believe he was trying to pick me up for the first one, but only he can deny that or whatever. Look, it was 30 years ago, and I often wonder what Nigel Worthington was doing, grabbing hold of the post and watching it going over his head. So it was a sort of a difficult header, the first one. The second one is arguably the easiest header that I've ever had to score. It was a deflected. I was running towards goal. One of them where you just have to let it hit your head, and it's gone in the bottom corner. So great times. The number of times I've been asked the question is, as I said, I'm just sad that it's 30 years ago now. I'm an heck. Long time ago. Time
does fly. Let's see. Which centre-back in today's modern era most resembles your style of play? That comes from Chi Ho.
Resembles my style of play.
You were unique, weren't you?
Listen, God loves a trier, and the one thing I was able to do was play every week. If I could... I don't think there's many now, really, because you're not allowed to be up against people the way we sort of were, you know. This first challenge on a centre-forward, I'd have to make it, you know, make sure that I knew I was around him, you know, but... I don't know, maybe the lads could pick one, I don't know.
You're a better player than that, Steve. You didn't play at Manchester United...
For 10 years
and win what you won. And won what you won.
But you know, Colin, sometimes you need a break, and you know, sometimes you talk about Pep improving everybody.
Yeah.
There's no doubt you could become better when you play with better players.
Yes.
Yeah. And I was privileged to play in a great team. I use the word great not too often, but when you've got Ince and Keane and Robson in front of you, and you've got Hughes and Cantona, Kanchelskis and Giggs and Dennis Irwin and Schmeichel in goal, you've got a chance. Yeah. And that's I'll always be grateful to that, because they take you up. Playing with better players is a little bit easier than playing with not so good players.
We've got a question from Aleknish as well, who asks, there's lots of highs in football, there's also lows. How do you deal with that horrendous abuse when you were manager of Newcastle, your childhood club? The stadium where you used to sneak in as a little boy, quite literally snuck in without paying.
I think it was one of the big disappointments that I had to put up with. But look, if you're going to go into management, then you have some dark times and some lonely times. It's a lonely, lonely existence, because only you know. You're responsible for picking the team. As for criticism, I never really was into social media. When it gets too far and it starts affecting the family, and like it did in Newcastle, then it's maybe time to call it a day, because it can go too far. I do believe I was part of just an empathy with Newcastle, where they were that desperate for a change of ownership. And
you got stuck in.
I got stuck into it, and I got stuck with it. But look, as I said, we finished 12th and 13th, but it was very, very difficult. And sometimes, as I said, it can be a lonely place.
Yeah. Question from Satish. From yesterday's conflict between Ten Hag and Martial, I'm not sure if you saw this, they were remonstrating at each other during the first half. It was picked up by the cameras. It went viral. Will his situation become like Varane and Sancho? Is the dressing room there at United becoming worse between manager and the players? Is Rashford becoming a one-season wonder from last year after his huge contract renewal? I mean, it's shambolic, is what he's trying to say.
Well, it needs addressed, and listen, that's gone on forever. That a coach or a manager will come onto a player, the one thing you don't want it to be doing is picked up and it goes viral around the world. I think it's pretty normal, you know, to get a bollocking now and again. You have to accept it.
Our English.
Sorry, the English or whatever. But it's quite normal. But you know, whether it's shambolic or is what we were talking about yesterday, when you're talking about commitment, then there's a worry and a question mark. And yesterday we talked, far too many people have talked about the commitment of certain individuals in the team. You know, for me, the 2 centre-backs did OK in the game. After that, they weren't good enough. And it's simple as that, they weren't good enough.
All right. Our final question comes from Login, who says, do you ever want to return to coaching again, Steve? If you do, what team would you wish to coach for? You can't say United, though, because anyone would want to coach Manchester United.
Anyway, coach that. Whether I come back in, I really, really don't know. If the right opportunity, I fancy trying to give somebody a hand, or maybe this sporting director becomes a little bit the new kid on the block. If I can help a young coach, maybe something where, well, maybe not in the cold face anymore, but certainly involved in football. Or maybe you can just invite me back here every other week after the Sunday we've had and the weekend we've had watching football. Then I'll come back next week if you wish.
It would be an absolute pleasure to have you on board, and the weather's much nicer
than
the UK. I know a young manager that might need some guidance. I think his name is Alex Bruce at Macclesfield. Do you know him?
I know him very, very well, but he's won 6 out of 6, so I don't think he needs me advice at the minute.
Perhaps, well, I'm not sure what helping hand you've had along the way for him to get 6 out of 6, the advice you've imparted to him already.